Hello, hello, hello. Tea with Miss P, day 9. Tomorrow we're gonna be in the double digits, and that's crazy, super duper crazy. But we'll worry about tomorrow when we get to tomorrow. I want to talk about yesterday, and I'm gonna talk about today, and then we're gonna read a little bit of more of Matilda. So yesterday, I didn't get to put any more hearts in my window, but yesterday I started sewing on a sewing machine that I'm borrowing from a friend, and I ended up sewing a face mask that covers people's nose and mouth and goes around the ears that I'm going to donate to nursing homes, to hospitals, to whoever really needs those extra face masks because we seem to be facing a shortage with all the people who are needing it to keep safe and feel safe from any germs that might be around. So I'm going to do more of that today. I'm actually going to go out to the store so I can get some more fabric and all the materials I need to continue sewing more face masks that I can donate. And that's my big plan for today. I know yesterday some of you guys went on a walk. I had someone message me saying that they found 172 hearts yesterday. Oh my goodness, that's so many, and that's awesome. I wonder how far they walked to find so many. It really seems to be spreading. I still only have 3 in my window, but that's so cool. I wonder if anyone can beat that record. I wonder if anyone can find any more than 172. And maybe if you want to go back to that same route and see if people added more, or this time maybe you can keep track of which colors are which. Like how many red hearts, how many yellow hearts, how many orange hearts. That could be something super cool too. So, for Matilda today, we read yesterday more about the Trunchbull and how the Trunchbull was treating the students. The Trunchbull comes to their class once a week and teaches them one lesson to kind of just test them to make sure that the teacher is doing her job. It really did not go well for Matilda's class. People were getting picked up by their hair, by their ears. People had to stand in the corner. It really has not gone well for them. But one of the things that I was really curious about is that we also read that Lavender, a girl in Matilda's class, picked up a newt and put it in the Trunchbull's water as kind of like a prank. But we don't know what's going to happen with that. We're still wondering. I'm still wondering what is going to happen with the newt. So hopefully today, as we read 2 more chapters, we're going to find out what her reaction. Is she going to find out? Is she going to leave the classroom and she never even saw the newt, so it was a lost prank? Or is she going to see the newt? Is she going to drink the newt? I just have so many questions because that wasn't really answered for me. So this chapter here is called The First Miracle. Matilda sat down again at her desk. The Trunchbull seated herself behind the teacher's table. It was the first time she had sat down during the lesson. Then she reached out a hand and took a hold of the water jug. Still holding the water jug by the handle and not lifting it yet, she said, "I have never been able to understand why small children are so disgusting. They are the bane of my life. They are like insects. They should get rid of as early as possible. They get rid of flies with fly spray and hanging up fly paper. I have often thought about inventing a spray to get rid of small children. How splendid it would be to walk into this class with a gigantic spray gun in my hand and start pumping it. Or better still, some huge strips of sticky paper. I would hang them all around the school, and all you get stuck to them. And that would be the end of it. Wouldn't that be a good idea, Miss Honey?" "If it's meant to be a joke, Miss Headmistress, I don't think it's a very funny one," Miss Honey said from the back of the class. "You wouldn't, would you, Miss Honey?" the Trunchbull said. "It's not meant to be a joke. My idea of a perfect school, Miss Honey, is one that has no children in it at all. One of these days, I shall start up a school like that. I shall think I will be very successful." "The woman's mad," Miss Honey was telling herself. "She's round the twist. She's the one we ought to be getting rid of." The Trunchbull now lifted a large blue porcelain water jug and poured some water into her glass, and suddenly with the water out came a long, slimy newt, straight into the glass. Plop. There's the newt. It's plopped in there. The Trunchbull let out a yell and leapt off her chair as though a firecracker had gone off underneath her. And now the children also saw the long, slimy, yellow-bellied lizard-like creature twisting and turning in the glass. and they squirmed and jumped about as well, shouting, "What is it? Oh, it's disgusting! It's a snake! It's a snake! It's a crocodile! It's an alligator! Look out, Miss Trunchbull!" cried Lavender. "I bet it bites." The Trunchbull, this mighty female giant, stood there in her green breeches, quivering like a clam. She was especially furious that someone had succeeded in making her jump and yell like that, because she prided herself on being so tough. She stared at the creature twisting and wiggling in the glass. Curiously enough, she had never seen a newt before. Natural history was not her strong point. She hadn't the faintest idea what it was. It certainly looked extremely unpleasant. Slowly she sat down in her chair. She looked in this moment more terrifying than ever before. The fires of fury and hatred were smoldering in the small black eyes. "Matilda!" she barked. "Stand up!" "Who, me?" Matilda said. "What have I done?" "Stand up, you disgusting little cockroach!" "I haven't done anything, Miss Trunchbull. Honestly, I haven't. I've never seen that slimy thing before." "Stand up at once, you filthy little maggot!" Reluctantly, Matilda got to her feet. She was in the second row. Lavender was in the row behind her, feeling a little bit guilty. She hadn't intended to get her friend in trouble. On the other hand, she was certainly not going to own up to it. "You vile, repulsive, repellent, malicious little brute!" the Trunchbull was shouting. "You are not fit to be in this school. You ought to be behind bars. That's where you ought to be. I shall have you drummed out of this establishment in utter disgrace. I shall have the prefects chase you down the corridor and out the front door with hockey sticks. I shall have the staff escort you home under armed guard, and then I shall make absolutely sure that you are sent to a reformatory for delinquent girls with a minimum of 4 years." The Trunchbull, in such a rage, her face had taken on a boiled color, and the little flecks of froth were gathering at the corners of her mouth. She was not the only one who was losing her cool. Matilda was also beginning to seem red. She didn't see the least mind being accused of having done something that she'd actually done. She could see the justice of that. It was, however, a totally new experience for her to be accused of a crime that she definitely had not committed. She had absolutely nothing to do with that beastly creature in the glass. "By golly," she thought, "that rotten Trunchbull isn't going to pin this one on me." "I didn't do it!" she screamed. "Oh, yes, you did," the Trunchbull roared back. "Nobody else could have thought up the trick like you. Your father was right to warn me about you." The woman had seemed to have lost control of herself completely. She was ranting like a maniac. You are finished in this school, young lady," she said. "You are finished everywhere. I shall personally see to it that you are put in a place where not even the crows can land their droppings on you. You will probably never see the light of day again." "I am telling you I didn't do it," Matilda screamed. "I've never seen a creature like that in my life." There's Matilda screaming back at the Trunchbull. You have put a crocodile in my drinking water," the Trunchbull yelled back. "There's no worse crime in the world against the headmistress. Now sit down at once and don't say a word. Go sit down at once." "But I'm telling you," Matilda shouted, refusing to sit down. "I'm telling you to shut up," the Trunchbull roared. "And if you don't shut up at once and sit down, I shall remove my belt and let you have it at the end of the buckle." Slowly, Matilda sat down. Oh, the rottenness of it all! The unfairness! How dare they expel her for something she hadn't done? Matilda felt herself getting angrier and angrier and angrier. So unbearably angry that something was bound to explode inside of her very soon. The newt was still squirming in the tall glass water. It looked horribly uncomfortable. The glass was not big enough for it. Matilda glared at the Trunchbull. How she hated it! She glared at the glass with the newt in it. She longed to march up and grab the glass and tip the contents of the newt over on the Trunchbull's head. She trembled to think what the Trunchbull would do if she were to do that. The Trunchbull was sitting behind the teacher's table, staring with a mixture of horror and fascination at the newt wriggling in the glass. Matilda's eyes were so riveted on the glass, and now, quite slowly, they began to creep over Matilda with a most extraordinary and peculiar feeling. The feeling was mostly in the eyes. A kind of electricity seemed to be gathering inside them. A sense of power was brewing in those eyes of hers. A feeling of great strength was settling deep inside her eyes. There was another feeling, which something else altogether, and which she could not understand. It was like flashes of lightning. Little waves of lightning seemed to be flashing out of her eyes. Her eyeballs were beginning to get hot, as though a vast energy was building up somewhere inside them. It was an amazing sensation. She kept her eyes steady on the glass. And now the power of concentration itself in one small part of each eye growing stronger and stronger, and it felt as though a million tiny little invisible arms with hands on them were shooting out of her eyes towards the glass that she was staring at. "Tip it," Matilda whispered. "Tip it over." She saw the glass wobble. It actually tilted backwards in a fraction of an inch, then righted itself again. She kept pushing at it with those millions of visible little arms and hands that were reaching out to her hands, feeling the power that was flashing straight from the two little black dots, the very centers of her eyeballs. Tip it, she whispered again. Tip it over. Once more the glass wobbled. She pushed even harder still, willing her eyes to shoot out more power, and then very, very slowly, so slowly she could hardly see what was happening, the glass began to lean backwards, further and further and further backwards until it was bouncing on just one edge of the base, and there it teetered for a few seconds before finally toppling over and falling with a sharp tinkle on the desktop. The water in it and the squirming newt splashed out all over the Trunchbull's enormous bosom. The headmistress let out a yell, and that must have rattled every window pane in the building. For 1 second and 5 minutes, she shot out of her chair like a rocket. The newt clutched desperately to the cotton smock where it was covered the gray chest there and clung its little claw-like feet. The Trunchbull looked down and saw it, and she bellowed even louder and swiped her hands. The sight of the creature flung across the room. It landed on the floor beside Lavender's desk, and very quickly she ducked down and picked it up and put it in the pencil box for another time. The newt, she decided, was a useful thing to have around. The Trunchbull, her face was more boiled than ever. She was standing before the class, quivering with fury. Her massive bosom was heaving in and out, and the splash of water down in front of it made a dark, wet patch, and probably soaked right through her skin. "Who did this?" she roared. "Come on, own up to it. Step forward. You can't escape this time. Who's responsible for this dirty job? Who pushed over the glass?" Nobody answered. The whole room remained silent as a tomb. "So it seems that Matilda has pushed over this glass with the power of her mind." "Matilda!" she roared. "It was you. I know it was you." Matilda in the second row sat very still and said nothing. A strange feeling of serenity and confidence was sweeping over her, and all of a sudden she found herself frightened by nobody in the world. With the power of her eyes alone, she had compelled a glass of water to tip and spill its contents over the horrible headmistress, and anybody who could do that could do anything. "Speak up! Admit that you did it," roared the Trunchbull. Matilda looked right back into those flashing eyes of this infuriated female giant and sat in total calmness. "I have not moved away from this desk, Miss Trunchbull, since the lesson began. I can say no more." Suddenly, the entire class seemed to rise up against the headmistress. "She didn't move," they cried. "Matilda didn't move. Nobody moved. You must have knocked it over yourself." "I most certainly did not knock it over myself," roared the Trunchbull. "How dare you suggest a thing like that? Speak up, Miss Honey. You must have seen everything. Who knocked over the glass?" "None of the children did, Miss Trunchbull," Miss Honey answered. "I can vouch for it, and no one moved from his or her desk all the time that you've been here, except for Nigel, and he has not moved from his corner." Miss Trunchbull glared at Miss Honey. Miss Honey met the gaze without flinching. "I am telling you the truth, headmistress," she said. "You must have knocked it over without knowing it. That is sort of an easy thing to do." "I am fed up with you useless bunch of midgets," roared the Trunchbull. "I refuse to waste any more of my precious time here." And with that, she marched out of the classroom, slamming the door behind you. In the stunned silence that followed, Miss Honey walked to the front of the class and stood behind her table. "Phew," she said. "I think we've had enough school for one day, don't you? Class is dismissed. You all may go outside of the playground and wait for your parents to come and take you home." The chapter is called The Second Miracle. Matilda did not join the rush to get out of the classroom. After the other children had disappeared, she remained at her desk quiet and thoughtful. She knew she had to tell somebody about what happened with the glass. She couldn't possibly keep a gigantic secret like that bottled up inside her. What she needed was just one person, one wise and sympathetic grown-up, who would help her understand the meaning of this extraordinary happening. Neither her mother nor father would be of use at all. If they believed her story, it would be doubtful that they would. They would most certainly fail to realize what an astounding event it was that had taken place in the classroom that afternoon. On the spur of the moment, Matilda decided that the one person she could confide in was Miss Honey. Matilda and Miss Honey were now the only two people left in the classroom. Miss Honey had seated herself at the table and was rifling through some papers. She looked up and said, "Well, Matilda, aren't you going to go outside and play with the others?" Matilda said, "Please, may I talk to you for something for a moment?" "Of course you may. What's troubling you?" Something very peculiar has happened to me, Miss Honey. Miss Honey became instantly alert ever since the two disastrous meetings that she had recently about Matilda. The first with the headmistress, and the second about the dreadful Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood. Miss Honey had been thinking a great deal about this child and wondering how she could help her. And now here is Matilda sitting in the room with a curiously exalted look on her face and asking if she could have a private talk. Miss Honey had never seen a look so wide-eyed and peculiar before. "Yes, Matilda," she said. "Tell me what happened to you that's so peculiar. Miss Trunchbull isn't going to expel me, is she?" Matilda asked. "Because it wasn't me who put that creature in that jug of water. I promise you that it wasn't." "I know that it wasn't," Miss Honey said. "Am I going to be expelled?" "I think not," Miss Honey said. "The headmistress simply got a little overexcited, that's all." "Good," Matilda said. "But that isn't what I want to talk to you about." "What do you want to talk about, Matilda?" "I want to talk about the glass of water with the creature in it," Matilda said. "You saw it spilling over all Miss Trunchbull, didn't you?" "Indeed I did." "Well, Miss Honey, I didn't touch it. I never went near it." "I know you didn't," Miss Honey said. "You heard me telling the headmistress that it couldn't possibly have been you." "Ah, but it was me, Miss Honey," Matilda said. "That's exactly what I want to talk to you about." Miss Honey paused and looked carefully at the child. "I don't think I quite understand," she said. "I got so angry at being accused of something I hadn't done that I made it happen." "What did you make happen, Matilda?" "I made the glass tip over." "I still don't quite understand what you mean," Miss Honey said gently. "I did it with my eyes," Matilda said. "I was staring at it and wishing it to tip, and then my eyes went all hot and funny, and then some sort of power came out of them, and the glass just toppled over." Miss Honey continued to look steadily at Matilda through her steel-rimmed spectacles, and Matilda looked back at her as steadily. "I'm still not understanding," Miss Honey said. "Do you mean you actually willed the glass to tip over?" "Yes," Matilda said, "with my eyes." Miss Honey was silent for a moment. She did not think Matilda was meaning to tell a lie. It was more likely that she was simply allowing her vivid imagination to run away from her. "You mean you were sitting where you are now, and you told the glass to topple over, and it did?" "Something like that, Miss Honey, yes." "If you did that, even if you did that, then it is just about the greatest miracle a person has ever performed since the time of Jesus." "I did it, Miss Honey." "It is extraordinary," thought Miss Honey, "how often small children have flights of fancy like this." She decided to put an end to this gently as possible. Could you do it again?" she asked, but not unkindly. "I don't know," Matilda said, "but I think I might be able to." Miss Honey moved, and now the empty glass in the middle of the table. "Should I put water in it?" she asked, smiling a little. "I don't think it matters," Matilda said. "Very well, then go ahead and tip it over." "It may take some time." "Take all the time you want," Miss Honey said. "I'm in no hurry." So Miss Honey doesn't totally believe Matilda, but she's not calling her a liar either. She's actually allowing Matilda another chance to show off her power if she does have it. Matilda, sitting at the second row about 10 feet away from Miss Honey, put her elbows on the desk and cupped her face with her hands. And this time she gave the order right at the beginning. "Tip the glass, tip," she ordered, but her lips didn't move. She made no sound. She simply shouted the words inside her head. And now she concentrated the whole of her mind and her brain to well up in her eyes once again, but much more quickly than ever before she felt electricity gathering, and the power was beginning to surge, and the hotness was coming into the eyeballs, that a million tiny invisible arms with hands on them were shooting towards the glass, and without making any sound at all, she kept shouting inside her head for the glass to go over. She saw it wobble and then tilted. Then it toppled right over and fell with a tinkle on the top of the table, not 12 inches from Miss Honey's folded arms. Miss Honey's mouth dropped open, and her eyes were stretched so wide that you could see the whites all around. She didn't say a word. She couldn't. The shock of seeing the miracle performed had struck her dumb. She gaped at the glass, leaning well away from it, and now, though it might be a dangerous thing, she slowly lifted her head and looked at Matilda. She saw the child white in the face, as staring straight ahead and seeing nothing. The whole face was transfigured, the eyes round and bright, and she was still sitting there speechless, quite beautiful in the gaze of silence. Miss Honey waited, trembling a little to herself and watching the child slowly stirred herself back into consciousness, and then suddenly click went her face to look almost calm. "I'm all right," she said and smiled. "I'm quite all right, Miss Honey. Don't be alarmed." So Matilda did again. She willed it with her eyes, and the glass tipped over, and Miss Honey is stunned. She really didn't believe Matilda at first. You seem so far away, Miss Honey whispered, awestruck. Oh, I was. I was flying past the stars on silver wings, Matilda said. It was wonderful. Miss Honey was still gazing at the child in absolute wonderment, as though she were the creation, the beginning of the world, the first morning. It went much quicker this time, Matilda said quietly. It's not possible. Miss Honey was gasping. I don't believe it. I simply don't believe it. She closed her eyes and kept them closed for quite a while. And then she opened them again to see it as though she could gather herself again. Would you like to come back and have some tea at my cottage? She asked. Oh, I would love to, Matilda said. Good. Gather up your things and I'll meet you outside in a couple of minutes. You won't tell anyone about this thing, will you, Miss Honey? I wouldn't dream of it, Miss Honey said. And that's all I'm going to read today. I wonder what they're going to talk about at Miss Honey's cottage. I hope you guys have an awesome day. Make sure we're listening to our parents. Make sure that we're helping around the house. And make sure that we're being kind to everyone, whether it be your siblings, your cousins, your parents. Make sure that we're doing that. Have a great day. I love you guys. Bye.